When you promote your application from one environment to another, like from development to test, or from test to production, it can be a lot of work to have to recreate Flexfield labels and mappings manually in the target environment. So Oracle provides a Data Migrator to help with this activity. The Data Migrator is available as an Ant target that can be executed on command line. In this lesson, I'll show you how to use the Data Migrator to promote Flexfield labels and mappings from one environment to another. You can use the Data Migrator to export all the Flexfield data from a source SOA environment into a XML file, and then use the Data Migrator again to import the XML file into a target SOA environment. Let's see how to export the Flexfield data using the Data Migrator Ant script now. We're looking at the export Flexfields command file that I've provided with this course. One of the first things that I have to do is to make sure that the right version of Java is in my system path. So I'm using Java 7 update 55 here. Let's also make sure that you're using the right version of Ant. I'm using the version that comes with the product under middleware home. Let's set up a migration properties file now for the export. The operation type should be export. The object type should be task payload Flexfield mapping. We're exporting Flexfields. You can use name to specify the task for which you want to export the Flexfield mappings, or specify all to export all of them. You can ignore user and group. They're used when you migrate views and rules. You can leave the value of grant permissions as true. This is used only with views, and with task payload Flexfield mappings, this will be ignored. Migrate attribute label is used to control whether you're migrating attribute labels or payload mappings. We'll leave that to true because we'll be migrating attribute labels first. We can leave the override setting to true. That overrides the payload mapping and attribute label data in the target server. Set the skip to false so that the script fails if there are any errors. If you set it to true, it will continue after errors. Migrate to active version set to true maps the task definition IDs to the active version in the target SOA server, and a false will not map task definitions. Let's go back to the export Flexfields command file now. It looks all wrapped around like this because I've removed all the line breaks. I'm invoking the ant t2p work list build file that's under your SOA home. Set your BEA home and SOA home. Set the migration properties file. This is the properties file that we just worked on. Set the hostname and the port for the source server. Set your SOA server admin username and password. Set the realm. Set the names of the output XML files. Let's go to the command line now to execute the script. We'll be promoting the attribute labels first, then we'll deploy the application to the target environment, and then promote the payload mappings. Let's run our command file to export the attribute labels. We've now created the migration export and migration export map files. Let's import these in the target environment now. Set up a properties file for the import. This is almost exactly the same as the export file. The only difference is the operation type is import. Just like the export Flexfields command file, I also have an import Flexfields command file. Everything is almost the same. Key differences are that the migration properties file is using the migration import properties file. The hostname, port, user ID, password, and the realm are for the target environment. So let's run the import now. Let's log into the target environment now to check if we can see the attribute labels we just imported. I'm logging in as WebLogic. This is the BPM workspace. Go to administration, go to public Flexfields, and we see our attribute label for job description. Go to protected Flexfields, and we see job category as expected. Now that we've imported the attribute labels into the target environment, the next thing we have to do is to deploy the BPM project to the target environment. I'm going to do it from JDeveloper Most likely, if you're moving it from test to production, you're going to be using AND scripts. After deploying the BPM project to the target environment, the next thing we have to do is to export and import the payload mappings. Go to your migration export properties file, and the only thing that you have to change here is to change the migrate attribute label to false. This will now export the payload mappings. Now go to the command prompt and run the export Flexfields command file again. Let's import the payload mappings to the target environment now. Open the migration import properties file. Change the migrate attribute label to false because this time around you're migrating payload mappings. Also change the skip to true. If the payload mapping ID doesn't exist on the target server, it will create it. Now let's try running the import again. Let's log back into BPM process workspace to verify that the payload mappings got migrated. Log in as the administrator and click on administration. Let's go to public Flexfields and click on edit mappings by task type. Let's look for our post a job task. Select that and you should see your payload mapping here. We've now successfully migrated all our payload mappings and attribute labels to the target environment.